Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. We made it through some really crazy conflict.
Major conflict.
And we like each other more now
Yeah, we do.
because we learned how to fight.
Yeah. We learned how to process through conflict, which is the thing that's coming up. We have a free conflict mini series that's going to be available May 10th and 11th. It's live. It's
live with us.
Yeah. But coming up is our life consulting masterclass live conflict mini conference. And we wanted to create an invitation for all of our Connected Life listeners to come participate with us in that. It's been something that we've developed over a lot of
Fights. We fought wrong for a long time.
Yeah.
And so we had to actually learn how to do conflict so that we could repair and heal with each other instead of tear each other down. And for a long time, our conflict created walls between us. And now we've learned some things that have made it so that it creates bridges.
Yeah. Conflict's something that's super scary for a lot of people. It feels like very complicated for everyone out there. And we're not really set up with the tools that we need oftentimes. So here's a very easy way to start the process of getting really good at doing conflict. If you want to come join us, you can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com/conflict. And you can jump on board with us May 10th and 11th. We have, I think, 3 sessions.
Yep.
So anyways,
Can't wait to have you with us.
we're going to go ahead and jump into the rest of the episode. Enjoy.
Oh my gosh. My best friend, Pietze, in the whole world
has just made her appearance into your life again. And how good do you feel about it?
I feel so happy
You
about
do?
it. It's
Good.
like one of the best things that can happen to me. I will go ahead and tell on myself. I have had a tough few months with all of my attachment trauma.
Yep.
We
It
talked a
happens.
little bit about attachment crises last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about how to create secure attachment. We didn't even really give them very many answers. We're just like, this is what it feels like. It feels horrible.
Yeah, but don't you feel like there's so much
Sometimes
hope
just
and just having someone who's like, oh my gosh,
It's a
you
thing.
feel that way too?
Uh-huh.
Like, I thought I was crazy. And we're like, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
You're just going through some attachment stuff.
Yeah,
You know?
you got attachment stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Totally.
So I had been feeling attachment stuff going on.
yeah, attachment stuff. That's what we're going to call it.
We're going to call it stuff. And so Justin was leaving and I could tell that I was having anxiety about him being gone. And actually, me and Justin travel a good amount without each other.
Yeah.
And that's not typically something that causes us anxiety.
Totally. You guys are very independent.
We're very
within
independent.
Your intimate relationship.
Yes, we are. But this time I knew I feel anxiety about being alone because I have so many triggers that are firing already.
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens with attachment is if you get into threat, so like once my attachment system is activated, I can feel like my body is on edge all the time. I'm like kind of in anxiety. And what I start to do is I start to look for, like, not even consciously, I subconsciously look for every cue of relationships changing or somebody just being a little short with me or something. And it's
It's like that hypervigilance piece that we talked about where like when you're stuck in threat mode, even situations and people that aren't necessarily super threatening start to become threatening or feel threatening.
yes, where all of a sudden, like somebody who has to jump off the phone all of a sudden, like that, like feels like, oh my gosh, is everything changing? Am I going to be okay? And that's like, so when I know that I'm in that swirl, it feels really dangerous because I'm like, I can't trust what I think or feel or see.
Totally.
So I was like, it'd be really great. So I just threw out like, Pietze, could you come? And it was so last minute. And I thought there's no way she'll be able to.
Well, then I did a really great attachment thing, which is that I didn't respond.
Yeah, but I feel so, here's what we'll talk about. I feel so secure in our relationship, especially right now I felt secure.
Yeah,
I think in seasons things can ebb and flow.
totally.
But I feel so secure that when you didn't respond, I didn't even think about it. I thought she must be busy. And I thought, because for me, when somebody asks me something that has to do with looking at schedules, those are the texts I respond to the least.
Oh, totally.
Because you have to sit down, you have to look at your calendar, you have to talk it through with multiple people, you have to try to plan. Yeah. That's one of the hardest things for me.
Me too. I mean, I try to be like a good attacher and at least respond and be like, hey, I'll look into this.
Totally.
But also my dyslexia gets in the way. Yep. And then it's like, oh, I totally out of sight, out of mind. That's why I have 620 unread text messages on my phone. I'm outing myself.
Yep.
But you did text me. I didn't respond. And I was like, oh, there's no way I could probably make this work because
which is what I thought. It was
we were supposed to be in LA this week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the plans changed.
And just like that, a little miracle floated my way.
And I
on an airplane.
Totally.
She just came and dropped bloop, right into my lap.
Right there.
Yeah.
It was literally like I called you and I was like, how about if I come? And you were like, yeah, let's do it. And like 12 hours later I was on a plane.
Yep. It was amazing and delightful.
Fun.
Yes. And it's been so good.
It's been awesome.
For my attachment system. And so I thought we would talk attachment. Honestly, the more I've learned about it, one, the more you feel less crazy. Mm-hmm. You start to understand why you trigger the way that you do.
My entire marriage and life made sense when I understood attachment theory, when I understood the system of attachment internally.
Anxiety made sense for me when I understood attachment theory.
So much of my trauma made sense to me when I understood attachment theory.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like once I learned attachment, I started to be able to have buckets to put everything in that finally made sense. And there's so much relief when your own story makes sense to you in a deeper way.
Totally. 100%. Like even with Johnny, I thought that he was a huge jerk. Honestly, because I didn't understand his attachment style. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand his attachment needs. I didn't understand his attachment trauma.
Totally.
And understanding that brought me so much compassion, not only for him, but also when I understood myself, it brought compassion. When I understood it, it brought compassion for you.
Yeah.
You know, all the different people.
Well, and here's what it does is it starts to take away the battle. So let's say you and Johnny were in battles and it was like he's bad or you're bad.
Right.
Either what you need is bad.
Who's the villain here?
Yeah. And when you understand attachment, you start to see both of us are trying to do the same thing. We're both trying to get safe and we're both trying to get our needs met. Mm-hmm. And we both have weird ways that we do that.
Yeah, different ways of doing that.
When we feel threatened.
Absolutely.
And so it levels the playing field. I wanted you to just share a little bit. Maybe I'll just share it for you.
I wanted you to share. Actually, I don't want you to open your mouth right now. You're going to take way too long. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for you.
Well, I was like, I don't want a huge story. I just wanted the summary. But one of the things you've said is you've had so many couples. You work with couples. Mm-hmm. You and your husband both are really, because you're such geniuses at attachment, and regulation.
Yeah.
We were talking today about
they kind of go hand in hand.
They really do.
They really are like twin sisters, you know?
Well, once you understand attachment, you understand I'm getting my attachment system's activated, which means I'm getting dysregulated. Mm-hmm. I need to regulate and then figure out how to do healthy attachment.
Yeah.
But most counselors, so me and Justin met with you guys and it was the best session I'd ever had. With somebody for marriage because you guys wouldn't let us get dysregulated. We had to stop like 3 times because what happens is you want to tell the story and you want to be like, but he did this and then he did this and then he did this. And you like want to like, totally. You want to tell on the other person and you want them to get in trouble for it and you get reactivated about it while you're doing it.
You literally are creating trauma within trying to heal the trauma.
Yeah, while you're telling the story, you're
totally.
And so Pietze would be like, no, we're going to slow down. Yeah. We're going to re-regulate. We're going to get back into your window of tolerance. Your window of tolerance is where you are actually capable of knowing what's going on inside of yourself, choosing how you want to react. You're not flooded. Yeah. You're regulated.
Yeah, totally.
And so, anyway, it was amazing. But the point that I wanted to make, you guys do work with people about attachment and marriages, and they probably will be doing marriage conferences or courses in the future, which I feel very excited about.
I know. It's going to be really awesome. Just because I think, all of us, as our best friends, like we've all been on this journey together. And I think as we've journeyed down the road of understanding neuroscience, understanding the nervous system and understanding emotional health, it really is the attachment system is so fundamental to all of those things and arousal levels within the nervous system,
But one of the things that you talked about is that a lot of people have met with you and been like, my counselor says my husband's narcissistic.
That's a common thing that happens.
Yes. And then your question is, did your counselor meet with him?
Yeah.
Or is that just through how you've talked about him?
Yeah, totally.
And it's oftentimes the counselor had not met with them.
Yeah. Or the counselor had just met once with them as a couple. And I'm like, that's not enough to understand. Like, you need a full psych workup to understand if that person's a narcissist, because oftentimes when we are in insecure attachment, we come off narcissistic.
Yes.
Johnny says it all the time. He's like, pain is narcissistic by nature because we're in self-protection.
Self-protection is all about, I need to make sure I'm safe. I need to make sure I get my needs met. I need to make sure that I'm seen. I need to make sure that I don't get run over. And it is very narcissistic by nature.
Absolutely. And typically, a common thing, and I know we talked about this in one of our last episodes, anxious attachers, they tend to think that they're the experts of the relationship. Like, oh, I have it right. And especially if they're married to avoidance, they think, I did this to a T with my husband.
Absolutely.
I'm not outing anyone. I'm outing myself because I did this. I was like, oh, I know how to be in a healthy, functional relationship. You do not. You're the problem. You need to change. Yeah. And so a lot of times, that's very, very common, especially when you have an avoidant. The people are like, they're narcissistic. And then avoidants tend to think, oh, this anxious attacher, all he does is talk about himself and care about his feelings. And they actually think the same
other
thing.
Person is narcissistic.
And as you begin to dissect attachment and you understand it, when attachment needs aren't getting met, everybody comes off narcissistic. Everybody's in a sense of self-protection.
And that's just true. When we feel like our needs aren't going to get met, all of us are trying to do whatever we can to get them met.
Absolutely.
Because we're trying to get safe again. We're trying to feel complete again.
It's that fundamental biological need that we talked about. We all have something inside of us. It's our biology, and you can't fight it, that is geared towards, how do I find safety? And when I can't find safety, how do I self-protect?
Yes.
Right.
And we are biologically wired that connection can be safe.
Yes. And should be safe. And we need that to feel safe. We need that to move through the world. We need that to be a healthy, functioning human. So in a relationship, when that's off, it is devastating. And that's where you see two people completely split and locked down in their own pain.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about basically a lot of the weird behaviors or crazy or messy or whatever behaviors you do are probably because you are not feeling that connection, that secure connection that we all crave and need. And so we all find kind of hacks. Our body creates hacks to try to get that connection.
Totally.
So a great example would be with Justin, when we first got married, every time he'd leave for a trip, I would pick a fight because I was trying to get that connection before he left.
Yeah. Yep. We even talked about this a little bit on the last episode where I'd say, typically, you'll have one, they're going to bed, like a couple's going to bed, and it's 12 o'clock at night and they're just sitting there watching TV. And suddenly one person wants to talk about the relationship and they have all these issues. And typically they do tend to have an issue or something that's, on the docket that they need to talk through. But the reason that it's coming up right in that moment is because of the anxiety of having a separation.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Especially for anxious attachers, separation causes a lot of internal anxiety. And a lot of times they're not even aware of what's happening in their body.
I legitimately always thought it was just random.
Totally.
That he kept doing stupid things right before he left.
Totally. 100%. I get nervous. And so I pick a fight. Often you'll even see this, we've been watching Love is Blind, so we have great examples of this, But one person gets nervous because, their partner didn't say hello to them in the morning.
Right.
Right. So I didn't get that bid for connection. I didn't get that sense of safety. You said hi, we had a reunification and you didn't say hi to me.
Let me break down some words that you're using. So
go ahead.
In attachment, I call it hellos and goodbyes.
Yeah.
Which is like separation and reunification.
Yeah.
So like at night you're going to your own sleep, and in the morning you're like reconnecting. And there's a million different ways you have hellos and goodbyes. It could be like when you leave for work for the day, when you go to sleep, when you go on a trip. There's so many different levels that we do.
Yes.
And again, these affect everything, not just your primary, not just your romantic partner, but your relationships around you, your friendships, all of that.
Yeah. And on a fundamental level, all relationships are a pulsation, should be a pulsation of closeness and independence. Closeness, independence. And really, that's even modeling what the parent-child relationship is in infancy. It should be a pulsation of we're together and then we separate. And that's actually a healthy functioning relationship should have that.
Secure attachment is, I feel so safe with you that I can be with you, and so safe that I can go be me on my own.
Absolutely. And you need the balance of both to have a healthy functioning relationship.
Yes.
Now, the problem is when you have insecure attachment, okay, so if I'm anxious, again, that separation is going to cause me a lot of anxiety because maybe I had a parent who would leave emotionally and they wouldn't come back for days. And so that causes me a lot of anxiety. Where on the flip side, somebody like an avoidant, that sense of closeness coming together, just the act of getting close again is going to start to bring up anxiety in their body because maybe I had a parent who emotionally consumed me.
Yes.
And when I'd be around them, they would like just dump on me,
dominate me
with their emotions,
suck the life out of me.
Totally.
Yes.
Or I had a family culture that we didn't really talk about emotions. I didn't really feel safe to get any kind of emotional needs met. So it doesn't feel safe to do that for anyone else in my adult relationships, you know?
So you have the connection and then the sense of self. And anxious people are scared for the self part, and avoidant people are scared for the connection part. And so we both have different parts of the expand, contract
that bring up issues.
That bring up fear and panic for us.
Yes, absolutely. So go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so the journey is creating secure attachments. And again, secure attachments are, we can feel safe with each other and we can feel safe separate.
Yeah.
And both of those are needed. And where it gets messy is people feel pulled to one extreme or the other.
Totally.
So it's like, if you have an anxious attacher, the other person feels like you want all of me all the time.
Totally. They can be labeled oftentimes as clingy.
And needy.
Yes.
And then you have the avoidant person that actually the gift they bring is that we should have autonomy and we should have our own sense of self and we should be moving about in the world. But that can become an extreme when there's not the connection part.
Absolutely.
So I remember like in our marriage, in the beginning few years, Justin would just go eat dinner without ever letting me know he ate dinner or like asking me if I wanted to eat dinner with him or any of that. No, he had a strong sense of self and he wasn't needy. And that's part of why I married him.
Totally.
It felt so nice.
Totally.
But that it also was so much like independence. And so we're looking for that interdependence.
Absolutely.
I'm not codependent on you. I'm not independent. I'm interdependent with you.
I love that.
I am able to connect and bond and have needs and get connection needs met. I'm also able to separate, be independent, have my own sense of self, and live and thrive without you.
Yep. And really healthy attachment or secure attachment, if you will, and people who do secure attachment know how to do this well.
Yeah.
They know how to feel safe with independence and when there needs to be separation and looking for cues in their partner of going, hey, we just need a little space.
Yeah.
I think about this all the time when we were little and we would have like sleepovers.
Yes.
If we spent too many days together, we would start getting into fights.
Absolutely.
Because what we needed is we needed a little bit of separation. And then when we would come back together, it was like nothing ever happened again. It's actually the same thing in marriage. Just because we're married doesn't mean that we need to be together all the time. It actually ends up hurting the relationship.
100%.
And so what secure attachers know how to do is they know how to feel safe with getting close and they know how to feel safe with taking space. And they recognize that both play a healthy part in a secure relationship. You need both to create a healthy, functioning relationship.
Yes.
You know, and really looking for those cues of like something that we tell people to do is make a ritual out of goodbyes and hellos. Like greet each other in the morning. Hi, it's good to see you.
Well, and just the intentionality.
Exactly.
Like, and secure attachment takes intentionality. And so one thing I think it's so important for you to know if you're an avoidant, that the more intentional you are with creating secure attachment, the more autonomy you'll get.
Yeah.
Like,
and the more independent you'll see your partner become.
That's what I'm saying. Like for me, when my friends give me a little bit of reassurance,
yes,
I feel like I can be much like, here's a great example. I have a friend that I went to a party and I felt very connected with them when I went to the party.
Yeah.
I didn't need to talk to them the whole party.
Right.
I like if I saw them, I was happy
secure
to
in the
see
relationship.
them.
You're like,
and like I was happy to like bounce around and be around them. It wasn't like I didn't want to be around them, but I didn't even think about, oh, am I hanging out with them or not? I didn't even think about like, where are they? What's happening? But if I feel disconnected from a best friend before a party and they don't come up and say hi to me or they don't come up and connect at all, then I start to be like, oh, this feels weird.
Totally.
And so
you're ruminating the whole time. Like, are we okay? Should I say something? Yeah. Totally.
And so the idea would be that little bit of connection,
the hit of connection,
then gives you permission to have the freedom of separation without it being intense.
Well, because what you're doing on a fundamental level is you are co-managing each other's nervous systems. So I'm recognizing even in the dynamic of a best friend, it's important to me to actually be like, hey, I care about your nervous system because it keeps our relationship safe.
Yes.
So if we go too long without talking, that's going to start to become dysregulating.
That starts to become stressful.
Yeah. So I'm going to give that hit of connection. It's the same with the, hellos and goodbyes. When I greet the morning by saying, hey, I greet you in the morning by saying, hey, I love you. How are you today?
Yeah.
Just that brings the whole nervous system down. Okay. But then let's say like you have another partner that's getting ready to walk out the door and just saying, hey, I love you. Have a great day today.
Yeah.
That even for somebody who's more avoidant, who needs that independence is like, I don't have to worry that I'm going to get in trouble for going out and going to grab a drink with a friend or whatever it is.
Well, and I really realized, so we'll talk about several different ways you can create secure attachment. We're starting with hellos and goodbyes.
Yeah.
But I realized as I was learning about secure attachment, I was really bad at these.
Totally.
And I was surprised.
We all are until you're intentional about it. You're like, oh, okay, interesting.
Like I would be like, let's say I'm hanging out with we used to hang out with one of my close friends would come over once a week and we'd all hang out. And then maybe we'd like watch a show together and then they'd get up to leave. And I'd be like, okay, I love you. I'll see you later. But I'm like still watching like the next show or whatever. And they just like leave.
Totally.
That felt so normal to me because I'm like, we're friends, we're family. We just spent the whole night together.
Totally. You're like, I'm ready for some separation.
No, it wasn't like I don't want you here anymore.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay.
Not thinking about it. Sure.
But then I was like, I actually never get up, stop what I'm doing and hug her goodbye. And just like, I'm so glad you were here. Like just that closure.
I love that
act.
Intentionality. Yes.
And it took me 1 minute to change. Like just getting up my lazy butt off the couch and just being like, goodbye. I'm so glad you were here.
100%.
Or like when people walk in, here's another thing. If I'm busy, when people walk in, it's very easy for me if I'm focused on something and people are coming over because people come in, they just walk into our house, like my close friends.
Totally.
It's very easy for me to just be lost in what I'm doing. And I think that's okay. But now once I'm done with whatever I'm doing, I try to consciously be like, switch mode and be like, hi, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
And, because when you walk in and somebody's really busy and they're focused on something else, it subconsciously relates to you. You're not as important.
Totally.
And that's fine. And our brains are all like, it's fine. They're busy. But that's also like a little bit of stress that we have to do to even say it's fine, they're busy.
That's it.
And we start to build little
stresses. It's maybe they didn't say goodbye to me when they left for work in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I texted them and I didn't hear back.
Yes.
And then they called me on the way home, but they didn't see how I was. They just asked for, and all those things. Then by the time your spouse gets home or your partner, you've exploded into a fight because it's all those little stressors along the way that added up to feeling really unsafe and feeling threat.
Yeah.
You know?
And I realized I really have the power to impact, like I never really thought about hellos and goodbyes, but we do in LCMC. It's our year-long life consulting school that we teach. One of the safety activations that we do to teach people how to feel safe in their bodies is to think about a moment someone was really excited to see them.
I love
they
that.
walked in the door.
That's a great visualization.
They walked in, like maybe a moment that like you surprised me and at a birthday and like all of a sudden I saw you for the first time, or a moment you walked in the door and somebody was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. Like just that feeling of having somebody be excited to see you. And people just like cry and they connect to this deep sense of love. And it doesn't always have to be huge. It doesn't have to be like, we haven't seen each other for a year. It could just be when I walked into the room for dinner the other night, my friends were, they smiled because they were happy to see me. It's shocking how good it feels to your soul to have people happy to see you.
Totally.
And that is such a little thing. And I get it. I'm so focused and busy.
Totally.
I get in such
like
task
oftentimes
mode.
It's not personal when people don't.
It's never personal. I'm never like, I'm not happy to see you.
Totally.
But also this is something we do as adults is we don't allow our little kid out. We don't allow ourselves to express ourselves.
Totally.
And we don't allow ourselves to be present enough to even notice. Oh,
yeah.
Pietze
Or let it
just
affect
walked
us.
in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I can be an adult brain and be like, I have to get this at the grocery store. I have to do this. Or I can be like, Pietze just walked into the room. What do I feel about that? I'm actually very happy she's here. That feels really nice that she's here. I'm going to allow myself to feel that and express that I'm thankful that you're here.
Yes.
And even sometimes when I haven't felt the emotions of like, I'm so thankful they're here, I can logically think about it. And I can be like, I'm really thankful that I have friends who come over to my house. I'm really thankful that I have people I can count on. I'm really thankful that I'm not alone in the world. And when I start to get thankful, then I can express that. And I've seen the hellos and goodbyes, and I want to get better at it with everyone. I'm not great.
Totally.
And there's so many moments I miss it, but this feels like such a simple thing to start to learn to anchor.
Yes. It's such a simple thing to learn secure attachment. That thing, just that right there. If you get good at responding, like creating a ritual of goodbyes, even at night.
I loved being with you today.
Yeah.
I can't wait till the next time we hang out.
Absolutely.
I can't wait till the next time we see each other.
Yep, totally. Just that simple act of texting a friend after you hung out with them.
Yes.
Or telling them, hey, it was so good to hang out with you
today. Making sure you give them a hug.
Absolutely.
Or with your partner, making sure you kiss them goodnight.
Absolutely. Oftentimes we don't even look at each other at night. We're just on our screens or whatever. And we don't realize that all those things actually affect our nervous system. They affect our attachment system. So just paying attention to that and just starting to implement those small steps, it actually makes a world of difference.
Yes.
Yep.
So there's two other things we're going to talk about that create secure attachment. One is bids for connection.
Yeah.
And how you're responding.
This is a big one.
And actually the Gottman Institute did a study on this, and they were like, the marriages that make it are the marriages where when one partner does a bid for connection, the other responds.
Yeah. I think like they say like 90% of the time.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So
it was like 90% of the time. I think that healthy couples responded to bids for connection about 90% of the time. And when we say bids for connection, what we're talking about is, a bid for connection could be anything as simple as like, let's say I'm in the living room watching the news and I call you, Abby. We'll say we're a couple because we're a couple of best friends.
We are.
Yeah. So I call you from the other room and I say, oh my gosh, Abby, come here. I got to show you something on the news. Come look at this.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right there has nothing to do, most likely on an attachment level, on a nervous system level, has nothing to do with the news.
Yeah. You can care less. It's wanting some form of connection.
Yep. It's
Do you know what I find this with? Memes on Instagram.
Oh,
like
interesting. Like sending them to your friends
or them sending them to me.
Like, do you feel loved by that?
Yeah.
Like, you feel like they're like bits for connection?
I do feel like they're bits for connection.
They are totally bits for connection.
What somebody's saying is, I want to experience this with you, or I want you to see something the way that I see something, or this impacted me and I want it to impact you. And so like,
now I feel bad for how many times I don't respond to them.
Well, I don't feel like, I literally don't feel insecure about it.
Totally.
But I'm saying, when people do that or respond to it, like Justin has made it a point, because I send him way too many. Yeah. Let's just be honest. I send him way too many. He's my go-to to send everything to.
Oh, 100%.
But he will go through every single one and he will respond to, and not even respond like sentences.
Just like heart it.
Yeah. Or like laugh face or whatever.
I love that.
All it's doing is like saying like, it's a hit of connection. I acknowledge that I had a shared moment with you. I'm not just ignoring that you did something.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. So it can be something as small as like, wanting to share something like that with a significant other or a friend. It can also be like asking someone how they're doing. A lot of times that's a bid for connection. I want to know how you're doing, but I'm looking for connection for you. And we almost have to become detectives to look in our surroundings for our attachment, like our primary attachments, which would be the people in our inner circle that make up our secure base, right? Yeah. Make up our safety, our people, if you will, our inner circle. And really it becomes almost like detective work to go, what are the bids for connection that they're asking for? Yeah. And how am I responding to these? Like when Johnny wants to show me a Lego set that he's excited about. And I literally could care less about Legos, but I make it a point to respond every single time. I've made it a point to learn about Legos. I've made it a point to understand Lego. You aren't supposed to say Legos, I guess. Oh, like my mom said Legos growing up, but I guess that's the wrong terminology. Lego? It's Lego.
Oh,
so it's Lego. You only say Lego. So I had to learn how to say Lego. And I did that because I wanted to respond to, I understood that is a way that I can create that bid for connection or respond to a bid for connection with my husband, And
then there's the more obvious ones, which are like, hey, I have something I'd like to process. Do you have time?
Yeah.
Hey, I'd love to share some feelings with you. And one of the things that I don't want people to listen to this and feel trapped. Like, now I have to respond every time someone has a bid, because that just feels overwhelming and like you're a slave to the people around you. So what my husband will do, like, he doesn't respond to all of my memes when I send them. He does it when he has time.
Sure.
And there's a lot of times when I'll say like, hey, I'd love to process with you. And he'll say, I don't have capacity right now, but I really love you and I would like to hear.
Yes.
So what he does is he does a reassuring thing with the boundary.
Yep.
And boundaries are important, because if you don't have boundaries in your connection, then you'll start to resent the person and then you'll throw up a huge boundary. And so boundaries are really important, but the communication around the boundary can be simple. So there's a lot of times where Justin will be trying to talk to me about something and I'm focused on something else. And so what I'll say is, once I recognize, you're trying to get my attention, I'll say, oh my gosh, I really want to hear about this thing, or I really want to connect with you or give you time or attention.
Yeah.
I need 20 more minutes to finish this.
Yep.
And then I'm going to be present for a little bit.
Yep.
And so what I'm doing is I'm acknowledging that he does matter.
Yep. And that you care.
But that there is a way that I can
You're still honoring your boundary, and that's what I think people don't realize about boundaries, is that there's actually a way to lovingly communicate a boundary that actually enriches attachment and connection.
Closeness. Yeah.
And there's a way to do it that does not, and oftentimes we don't realize that there's a difference. Like,
and so
I
we
can
do
still
boundaries
have a voice.
by I don't have time for that. Or like, can't you see I'm busy? Why are you bothering me? I have to get this done.
Yep, absolutely. Or ignoring them, or being like, I just can't do that right now.
Yeah.
And listen, I do not respond well
we all do
every single time. Yep. There are times where I'm irritated. There's times where I'm PMSy. There's times where I got kids pulling on me and my husband comes in and wants to tell me something and I'm like, and I snap. But I've made it a point to like pull back and be like, I'm so sorry. I got super dysregulated in that moment.
Yes.
I love you. Or I'll text him, right? Like maybe
Yep.
I'm running out of the house
Totally.
and I didn't do a great job. But when I get to the place, I just text him really quick and say, hey, I'm so sorry I was frazzled. I love you.
Yes.
Can't wait to talk to you tonight.
Totally.
You know?
I was thinking about 2 funny bids for connection really quick that I've seen before.
Spill it.
So I was counseling this couple friend of ours, and he was like, I don't know why my wife doesn't like it when I tickle her and wrestle her to the ground all the time and then want sex later. And I was like, well,
well, where do I start?
well, what I said was like, okay, so what you're like, he's like, I get like, she gets really annoyed when I get up in her space. And I'm like, are you trying to relate to her like a middle school boy to a middle school boy? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay, I think what you're doing is a bid for connection.
Yes.
I think what you're doing is you want attention. And the way that you're doing it is through roughhousing her.
Totally.
And the way that you're doing it is getting in her face and doing all that stuff. And that's not something that is inviting for her. And I could recognize that because Justin did that to me for years. He would just be pestering me, like throwing things at me, being annoying.
Totally.
And all of a sudden, like, and I didn't even know about attachment back then, but what I knew would work is I'd be like, okay, he wants attention. So I'd stop what I was doing and I'd go up to him and I would look him in the face and I'd grab him and I'd be like, I'm giving you all my attention. You have all my attention. What do you want? What do you want? You want a job? Let's do it. Ah, you got all of me. You have all of me. And he would instantly
like come down
because he actually was needing my attention. And the way he was trying to get it was through throwing like a middle school guy temper tantrum.
So many wives out there feel so validated right now. They're like, I literally thought it was just my husband. We're like, no, it's all of our.
It's like, that's because that's what they know. It's so vulnerable and men aren't taught how to reach out in vulnerability for connection. How to say, I'm feeling like I'd like some time or attention, or
or even when they ask for sex, it can come out very junior high boyish.
Yes.
You know, like, I'm going to come by and give you a boob honk, you know?
This is so real. It's so real.
You're like,
and
wait, was that foreplay? Because that's literally
I don't know if you know this, but that did not warm me up.
It does usually never works, guys. I'm just going to let you know right now. It doesn't work.
Yes.
You know, but oftentimes it's because
it's a bid for connection.
It's a bid for connection. And I don't know how to bridge that gap of connection.
Yes.
You know,
everyone feels vulnerable asking for connection.
Oh, totally.
Until you've done it in a relationship consistently and it becomes a new normal. And then it's not vulnerable.
Totally.
Like the first time you say, hey, I'm feeling like a little, like I could need a connection hit.
Mm-hmm.
That might feel really vulnerable. But after you and your partner have done that 30 times, it just feels like a normal part of your vocabulary in your day.
Well, and that's why a secure attacher can do it so well, is because it's no longer threatening to do that, or because they never had the threat there in the first place.
Yes.
But that's the cool thing about attachment, is we can all learn how to be more securely attached.
Yes.
And so by
secure attachers can ask in straightforward ways to get their connection needs met.
Yep. And also secure attachers, it's not that they don't get their feelings hurt or don't feel.
It's not the end of the world.
But it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't spiral them if someone can't respond to that bid for connection, because they don't hold on to the belief like, I'm getting rejected or love's going to leave. They're just like, oh, you must be not doing so well right now. I'll try again later.
Yeah. The secure attacher has like a love tank that's full. So they think that when they give a bid for connection and you don't respond, they don't think that means they're going to be on empty with love. Totally. They don't think that means you're going to leave. They don't think that means that this is the end of the relationship.
I love that picture.
And, but so I've noticed in my friendships, when my love tank is empty, every little thing
becomes more high stakes.
Is high stakes.
Yep.
And I have anxiety about every little thing. And then my friends get confused because they're like, oh my gosh, I guess I need to always do all of these little things. And I'm like, no, actually, if I feel loved.
Yeah. If I feel secure, then
I'm fine. If I feel secure and then you forget to call me back, not a problem. Yep. If I feel secure and you don't show up on time, not a problem.
Yep. Totally. 100%. And that's what we were even talking about earlier, is like, the more someone feels secure in a relationship, the more independent.
Yes.
And the more easygoing they become.
100%.
You know?
Yes. And so if people can remember that is, you put in a little extra work to help someone feel secure.
Yep.
And you get a great
the payoff
benefit.
is amazing.
Yes.
Yep. The payoff is amazing.
Okay. So there's bids for connection. And one of the ways that you create secure attachments is being able to respond to them and also being able to ask for them in not weird ways.
Yeah, totally. And feeling, like we said, feeling comfortable asking for them.
Yes.
And recognizing that that's a healthy part of the relationship.
It's okay to have connection needs. And this is, I think so many of us have been taught over and over again that we're too needy if we have connection needs.
Totally.
So many of us have been taught like, oh, saying you actually need something makes you the needy person in a relationship.
And we all want to be the easygoing person in a relationship. And here's the truth. There is no such thing as an easygoing person in a relationship. Everybody is difficult to be in relationship with.
Yes.
Everybody.
Everybody has needs because all of us are wired to need connection and we need it in our own ways.
Absolutely. 100%. You know, and so really what secure attachers can do is they have that healthy self-entitlement. And when I say that, it's not like ooh, you're so self-entitled. It's that I know how much space I'm supposed to take up in a relationship because I'm not fixated on meeting all of your needs or you meeting all of mine. I'm actually care about the relationship and I'll advocate for the relationship. And the relationship is 50% you and 50% me.
Yeah.
And so I bring my 50% and I expect you to bring your 50%.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And healthy self-entitlement is that ability to say it's okay to have needs. It's okay to have wants. It's okay to have boundaries.
Yep.
It's the ability to have a sense of self.
Yep.
And be able to advocate for it.
Yep. Absolutely. In a healthy way. I don't have to use demands. I don't have to use a fight. I don't have to pick a fight
in order
to get a need met. I actually can come straightforwardly and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I want to talk through it.
Yeah.
You know?
So let's talk about reassurance. That's the third way. So hellos and goodbyes, bids for connection, and then reassurance.
Yeah.
So one of the ways you have secure attachments is people who are comfortable with the reassurance process.
Absolutely.
And it's so funny because so much of healthy attachment is like so close to all of these very dysfunctional things you do your whole life. So like we've all wanted reassurance. And so we've all done it in very
weird ways.
Yeah. Weird or like needy or desperate. And then people haven't liked it. And then we're like, see, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then we want to shut down and just not have needs. Instead, like asking for reassurance in a healthy dynamic is this beautiful gift that you and your friends can have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really asking for reassurance in a healthy way kind of requires one fundamental step. Well, I would say maybe two. And that is the ability to understand what I need. The ability to have a sense of self and understand what I need, and the ability to communicate that honestly.
Yes.
You know, and when I can do those two things, and it allows me to not have to use those weird ways, if you will, by I'm going to be ultra needy or I'm going to pick a fight.
Yep.
I can actually come straightforwardly because I felt my feelings and I know what I feel and I'm able to communicate that. And I'm also able to be honest with you because I'm not scared to say, hey, I think I felt a little shut down when you said that. And I think I'm just needing some reassurance to make sure that like, was that about me or is there something else going on here?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Reassurance. Sometimes I also think of it as like clarification.
Totally.
Narrating. There's so many things it can be defined as, but asking for, like, I'll give an example of a reassurance reach out that I did, which was, I think after maybe Christmas or New Year's this year, I was like, hey, I can tell I'm starting to have hurt feelings because it's like, obviously we're best friends, but on holidays, sometimes you just go MIA.
I disappear.
And holidays feel like important days to feel like you have family to me.
Yep.
And somehow they're the days that you're so involved in family.
Totally.
That it just often we miss each other.
Totally.
And so I reached out to share that I was having feelings.
You did a great job.
Honest about it.
Yep.
And then your response. So that was like me. I mean, I wasn't saying, hey, I'm asking for reassurance, but but
it really was. That was the intent is like, hey, you were being honest with me.
And
and you were seeking that reassurance piece. And I loved it. You did such a great job. And of course, anytime you get confronted, even though I feel very safe in our relationship, you know, you have that moment of like, oh, I'm in trouble. I did something wrong. You know, what I've had to learn to do in my life to become more of a secure attacher is to take a deep breath.
And not take it personally.
Not take it personally.
Not be defensive.
Nope. Because when I do that, then I make it about me and I'm not making it about the relationship.
Yes.
And in that moment, I need to make it about the relationship because that's actually what secure attachers do. The relationship is first. And it's my job to protect
It's not just about defending me.
Yeah.
It's about defending the relationship and what is best for connection.
Absolutely. So I value your honesty. And I value the underlying bid for connection because I know that when you bring that to me, you're protecting the relationship. And if I don't respond well, then I'm just protecting myself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I take a deep breath and I come back into my window of tolerance. And I think I just immediately said, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I dropped the ball on it. And I can imagine that would have felt really horrible.
Totally.
And I'm really sorry.
Yeah. And you're very tender. And then what it did is instantly minimized. Like in a good way. Like my anxiety instantly came down.
Because you were like, oh, you see me and you're not just completely disregarding me and it matters to you. And I needed to know that I mattered to you.
Yes. And one of the things is like so what I've learned is attachment for me is we have anxiety that's building up. And most of the time I just wasn't aware of it until I had already done the activity of the explosion. So like the activity of the explosion would be like, I'm just going to shut my heart down towards Pietze. I'm just going to not need her. I'm just going to find other people to care about more than her. I'm just going to throw a fit with her. I'm going to pick a fight. Like that's like me building anxiety and then coming to a conclusion that to deal with my anxiety. Because we all have anxiety when we feel disconnected.
Absolutely.
And so we all do something with that anxiety. And so my desire is to notice that anxiety before I hit my upper limit of it.
Yep.
And then bring it up in a way that feels like safer than like when I'm at my limit.
Absolutely. Because when you hit it at like a level 2 or a level 3 and don't wait till level 10, it becomes about reassurance, not about a fight.
Yes.
It doesn't become about victims and villains. It becomes about, hey, I'm off and I want to protect the relationship. So I'm coming to you for that reassurance piece. And we can handle it in a way that actually meets your need quickly. Does that make sense?
Yep.
No, that's hard to do because you got to be insightful. You got to recognize, oh, this is coming up, you know, and I think even having a conversation about valuing that in a friendship, valuing that in a marriage, valuing that in a relationship is key.
Well, and that's why you can just send this podcast to all of your people. And so you can all get on the same
board.
Page.
Let's
and
do
so
this.
You can start to like have some common language and be like, I want to build towards this. What are some of the other ways that you ask for reassurance?
Gosh, I think that is a really good question. You know, I'm really good about just honestly asking for reassurance. Like I've made it a point to recognize when my nervous system is getting elevated and just reach out and quickly ask. Because a lot of times, you know, if I don't, then I do one of two things. I either want to withdraw from the relationship or I want to control the relationship in some sort of way. And so because I don't want to go into those codependent natures, really just right away recognizing like, oh, I feel off, or like, hey, when Abby looked at me that way, I read that as she's disapproving of me. And oftentimes if I come and say, hey, are we good? Or like,
were you frustrated
with me? I saw look, but I honestly could be recognizing that wrong. And I try to do it in a way that doesn't assume that you did something wrong, because I recognize that I could be misinterpreting this.
Yes.
You know, but just asking again at that level 2 or 3 allows me to be able to come in there and right away get that reassurance.
Yes.
You know?
And here's what it does is it enables the other person to be able to share without the anxiety. Like when the anxiety is that little, it doesn't have to be a huge thing.
Absolutely. And Johnny and I, because we value this and we understand it is part of maintaining a healthy relationship, that's not a needy thing. It creates, what it does is when you respond, just like when you respond to bid for connection, when you value the hellos and goodbyes, and when you bring that reassurance piece, what those do is it's part of creating, it's the maintenance of a healthy relationship. It's like caring for a plant.
Yes.
You know, like it needs all the right things for it to thrive. And when you value that, it doesn't become annoying. It actually makes people less needy.
Mm-hmm.
And so even like, I'll be good about really texting like quickly and just being like, hey, when we said goodbye, like, were you just feeling stressed because of work, or did I do something that felt threatening?
Yes.
Just quickly, right away, like nipping it in the bud, you know?
And here's what happens. Like, people feel like they need to build a case. So they need to prove that it was that they, so it'll be like, no, were they or were they not frustrated with me? And then they want to OCD loop over it until
and then
they
will
out
actually collect evidence
to be like, no, they must be frustrated with me. Instead, what you're talking about is asking before we have enough evidence to even know.
Yes.
Asking to inform our evidence.
Absolutely.
And I do this all the time, and it's not needy. It solves so many conflicts.
Yes.
For me, it'll be like, hey, I felt like you were distracted earlier. Was that because you're frustrated with me, or is that because you have something else on your mind?
Yeah.
And then normally people will tell me something like, oh, I'm really concerned about this thing, and I had to get this email done by this time. And then I'll instantly feel my body just go into relief a little bit.
Well,
because
that's exactly
our kid brain reads every action from other people is a statement about us.
Absolutely.
And so our adult brain knows that's not actually true.
Mm-hmm.
There's a million things going on, but I can have body reactions to where I still read things that are all about me.
Yes.
And so I just do quick little check-ins.
Yes.
Now I have way less conflicts. I have way less intense conversations, because if you have a conversation at a level 2, they respond at a level 2.
Yes.
If I bring the conversation once it's to a 10, once my anxiety is really heightened and I'm really frustrated, then you are more likely to respond at a 10 back, because we mirror each other.
Yes.
Not even because you want to, but we mirror each other. So when I ask a low stakes question, I can also often get a low stakes response.
Absolutely. And one thing that we do often, you do this, Johnny and I live by this, and it's something that we teach every couple we work with, is to lead with relief.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone brings that need for reassurance or even something up, we try to quickly, the first thing is to disarm the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you don't have to worry. Like, so right away, like when you brought that thing up to me about like, hey, I'm starting to feel like upset because you've completely disconnected over the holidays.
Yeah.
My job right there was quickly to lead with relief. You matter. I see you and I see it. And it matters to me.
Yeah.
You know, so right away I just said, yep. I just acknowledged it right away. Yep, that's true. I could have easily gotten defensive. I could have easily been like, well, Abby, I had all these
story first.
Yeah, totally.
We want to tell our story before we
And when you value attachment and the nervous system
more than
being right.
Yes.
More than being right. And what you're really saying is, I value the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship involves me and you together.
Yes.
You know, when I value the attachment system and the nervous system, I recognize that when I lead with relief, I actually get the ability to share my story in a way better way
because
after.
As soon as when my anxiety goes down, then if you want to share about what was going on for you, I actually have the ears to hear it. I'm not defensive. I'm not frustrated. I don't feel run over. When my anxiety's gone, I feel this natural openness back to connection with you.
Totally. 100%.
And this is so hard to remember in conflict.
It really is.
It's so hard to remember when you feel defensive.
Yes.
But if you can really, one of the things that me and Justin do a lot, and that I try to do in conflicts with other people too, is thank you so much for bringing that up. Or thank you so much, because that is leading with relief.
Yep.
It's me saying, I'm welcoming you here. Like, it's me communicating. I'm not mad that you're bringing something up.
I see that you care about the relationship, and I appreciate that you had the bravery to do this.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%. And really doing that right away lets the person know right away, you care, I care, you matter, and this matters to me. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing their nervous system down. I'm bringing them into the window of tolerance, back where they feel safe again, right?
Yep.
Where they feel secure again. Once they feel safe and secure, they're going to have the ears to hear maybe the reasons that I misstepped, that I'm not bad, but I'm human, right? Like over the holidays, I was like, oh, you're so right. Like one of the kids got sick and my back got injured again and I just got busy and I wasn't thinking, but I am so sorry.
Yeah.
You know, and I could say that and you were like, of course. Like you responded amazing. You were like, seriously, I get it. That is so much. I can't, like when I kind of like listed out what had happened, you're like, oh my gosh, that is so much. And then I came back and I was like, but regardless, I should have done a good job.
And I want to make you feel that way.
And I'm sad that I missed it, you know? And so it becomes this beautiful exchange where we leave the interaction feeling closer and feeling like more established in connection than we did before.
Now, there's two things I want to say. We got to wrap up, but it is vulnerable to bring up when you have that low level of anxiety and ask for reassurance. It's vulnerable to do it. That's why we avoid doing it. Yeah. Like even for me, I spent my whole life trying to act fine if people didn't attach, like if I didn't feel safe in the connection, I was like, that's fine. I'll find somebody else to feel safe with. Like I don't ever want to be needy. I had such repulsion because my mom was so needy with me. Yes. And it consumed me. I was like, I never want to be needy. But a healthy amount of self-entitlement, a healthy amount of needs creates a secure attachment. Absolutely. So I actually was going to have better attachment with you if I brought up this need than if I didn't. Absolutely. 100%. And it's very real that even sometimes when you bring something up at a level 2, if you don't have someone who's on the same page and values that, they might not always respond well. Yep. You know, and that's where it's so powerful to have those conversations outside of a moment where you're needing before that. You get to reassurance, it might be good to talk about the concept.
Yeah. And to say, is this something we value? Is this something we want to work on? Is this something
that I could do with you? Yeah. Like I have a lot of friends that I am like, oh, sometimes when I misread things, it causes me a little bit of anxiety. If I misread something, are you good with me just bringing it up really quick and asking you?
Yeah. And I invite friends to do this all the time too.
Information helps me feel safe. So if you can tell me, like if I ask you like, hey, it feels like you're not present, and you can tell me, oh, it's because I'm thinking about this test I have coming up. Then that information decreases my anxiety. Totally. Most people think what somebody needs to decrease their anxiety is to like, now I have to fully turn towards you and give you all my attention. Yes. But that's not actually what I need most of the time. Nope. A little bit of information can soothe me, narration. So somebody just narrating, I feel consumed by this, or I feel like this, then you can know what to expect.
Absolutely. And so I think having those conversations outside of the moment is setting yourself up for success. Yes. Of going like, hey.
Oh yeah, don't try to implement this when you've never done it before.
Yep, totally.
Don't try to like be like, Abby and Pietze said in the podcast to do this.
And then it didn't go great. Because 100%. And it's something that in all of my friendships, I tell my friends often, hey, if you ever need reassurance, or I want you to confront me if I hurt your feelings, because I value that. And it's important to me. And inviting that, which I know some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. But it's part of what I've done as a way of going, hey, it actually makes me feel more secure when I know that someone will confront me.
Be honest with you.
Be honest with me. And when they need reassurance, I'm like, I value that. That doesn't feel needy to me. That doesn't feel weird when someone says, hey, I'm feeling a little weird about this. I just want to make sure we're good. I'm like, oh, I will lean in, you know?
Absolutely. One last thing that I think creates secure, I mean, I know it does scientifically, it creates secure attachments, is debriefing. So if you are at an event and then you go away and you talk about how you experienced it together. Yes. Or you debrief, like when we get done with this podcast, we'll talk through like the things that we loved about it and what we felt through it.
And the things that we were bummed that we didn't say. Yes.
But that debriefing, what it does is it helps us have a shared experience through what we just went through and common language. And it starts to help us have like moments that we recognize we felt the same thing.
I love that.
Debriefing is something I do regularly. Like after a trip with Justin, I might, or at the end of a day, I might be like, what were your favorite parts of the day? Or what was your favorite thing when we watched that movie? What was your favorite part?
Yes.
Some kind of debrief, or like, did you feel emotional when we watched that movie?
Totally.
Debriefing lived experiences that you did together just is a way to have that connection, secure base.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I thought, can I slip in one more real quick, is that secure attached relationships and securely attached people recognize that loss is very much a part of life.
Yes.
And they don't.
Oh my gosh. Say it again for the people in the back. This is acceptance. There is acceptance. They're not just insecure attachers are clinging and desperately holding on to everything with the idea that any loss means they are not going to be okay.
And they're either doing that by trying to avoid the and avoid conflict, or by trying to start conflict to try to keep you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a secure attacher recognizes that loss is a part of life and you can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the acceptance piece is that there's going to be gifts that come into my life and there's going to be loss. Every decision has loss to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ways I've resisted loss in my life, and I've been really insecure in my system, has been having anxiety over there being a perfect or right way to do something, and recognizing, no, every decision I make is going to have a negative consequence to it in some way. And that's a part of life. And I accept that, and that's okay.
Yep.
Or I accept that people will come and go in my life. And we saw this on Love is Blind this week, where we saw someone, we were watching it, and there was this girl,
she was such a secure attacher.
Oh my gosh. We were you should watch Love is Blind with Abby and I, because we are psychoanalyzing
all the attachment.
We're having the best time. We're being girly. We're psychoanalyzing. Yes. We're having so much fun. We're oh my gosh, look at that.
There was a girl, and I don't remember her name. Do you remember it?
I don't, but she's amazing.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She's awesome.
But every time there was a confrontation, she didn't go into threat. She didn't get defensive. She was reassuring. She also
held her ground. She was able to speak up without having to
she didn't fall on her sword.
Yep, without having to accuse the other person or get defensive.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to hold her ground. And also, when the relationship ended, she was able to feel her emotions deeply and stay connected to her own sense of self and her own emotional experience
without lashing out at the guy,
going into blame, going into accusation, talking about how he had ruined her life.
Yes.
Yep. She was able to just stay close to the pain and let the pain come out without it going into attack and threat.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a crazy way to live. I watched her and I thought, wow, what a hero. What a hero.
We're all working on it.
We all need to grow.
We're all working on it. We're all working on towards being okay with learning how to stay in our window of tolerance, even when a hard emotion comes. I can experience that within my window of tolerance.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things is there's different seasons. So there were seasons, me and you, our relationship looks different every season. Sometimes we talk all the time. Sometimes we talk.
It has looked so different
very
in so many
rarely.
seasons.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so when I'm secure, the ebb and flow doesn't even faze me.
Totally.
We normally talk about it because it's good to acknowledge.
Yes.
But it's fine. When I am in a more of a trauma state, the ebb and flow is harder for me to adjust to.
Yep.
And I don't beat myself up for that. That doesn't mean that I'm less healthy of a person. It means I'm in a more heightened state of activation, and that's okay. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this. There's so much we could talk about attachment. There's so much we could talk about, but this will give you just a little bit more information.
Just going to point you in the right direction of we're all working towards becoming more secure.
Mm-hmm.
We're all working towards healing. We're all working towards showing up in a secure way.
We're not all working towards it. Some people are adamantly not working towards it. But
hopefully if you're listening to this podcast you probably are working on it in some way or have a desire to.
Yes. So share it with your people.
Yeah.
And start having the conversations.
This would be a great one to listen to with a friend or group or spouse or someone
Small
you're in a
group.
Relationship with. Yeah, absolutely. Even creating communities of securely attached people. Man, what a difference that would make in the world.
Oh man, girl. I'm with you.
What a difference it would make.
Well, all right. Well, thanks for joining us. It was so fun. And cheers.
Cheers. Let's say goodbye in a good way. We love you.
We love you. We're glad you were here with us.
This was so much fun. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Cheers.